All right. Looks like we're live. Looks like we're live. All right. So it's late where I'm at. It's about 11:44, 11:40. Yeah, just hit 11:45. So I'll come on for this little stream here. I'll be on for a little bit. I don't know if I'll be on for much longer, like an hour or so. I don't think I'm gonna be on for very long. So here's what I'm making the video for, right? So on the thumbnail, obviously y'all saw the CM Punk picture. CM Punk got fired by AEW. At least the news broke today. I believe by Tony Khan on Twitter. Tony Khan's the CEO of AEW, and he's the president. And so it was revealed today that CM Punk was released and terminated. It wasn't just some rumor that was going around. It was that uh, Tony Khan himself had made that executive decision to fire CM Punk. And so when that happened, I can't say that I was particularly broken up about it. Now, for a little bit of context on how I personally feel about the whole situation, CM Punk used to be my hero like way, way back in the day when I was like a little kid, 13, 14 years old. Like CM Punk was my hero. Like, I love that rebellious nature from CM Punk. Like he's the guy that made me want to go straight edge, not do drugs or drink or anything like that. CM Punk was like my hero. When he left WWE, I was pretty broken up about it. I didn't like that he left WWE, and so I kind of was hopeful that he would return one day. And lo and behold, he returns to AEW, and I was like a little kid again. I felt joy, I felt passion, and I was like, "This is how I should feel as a wrestling fan." Um, and so, given that now 2 years later, because it's been about 2 years since he returned in 2021 to professional wrestling after doing MMA and UFC and all that. He's been acting like a degenerate ever since. Um, and now the most obvious thing that most people have a problem with CM Punk for is that I hate to use the word toxic, but a toxic employee wherever he goes, basically. The guy has some problems. Because he gets in at All Out last year. Last year's All Out 2022, he got into a fight in the locker room after the pay-per-view in Chicago, I believe it was in Chicago, with the Elite. Kenny Omega, the Young Bucks, Christopher Daniels was in there, Nakazumi was in there, Ace Steel was a big part of that. Because wrestling fan, you know about Brawl Out from last year, where CM Punk got in a fight with them. Now, you could take sides on who was right in that scenario. I personally believe that after CM Punk had went on a rampage after that winning the title, it warranted that the Elite would show up and be like, "Hey, why did you slam Tony Khan? Why did you slam us? Why did you talk all this shit in front of thousands of people live after the show, after winning the world championship?" They ended up getting into a brawl, I guess because they're children. I don't know. But the Elite haven't really swayed me from, they haven't made me hate them, right? The Elite seemed like they were just trying to do their job. It seems like they were trying to be competent at handling the situation that CM Punk was clearly mad about. And so after that, both sides were suspended for months. The Elite came back in November of 2022, and CM Punk didn't come back until last May, I believe, this previous May of 2023. They, in fact, created the CM Punk, Tony Khan, AEW, and Warner Brothers Discovery with David Zaslav all sat down and were like, let's create a whole new television show for AEW that basically gives CM Punk room to run around and be free and do whatever the fuck he wants. So CM Punk ended up taking the world championship and defending it on that show and becoming the big star of that show. AEW Collision is built around CM Punk. And so they created a whole nother show for this guy so that he could do his thing, so that they could keep him, because he's a big moneymaker. There's no doubt about it. The guy's a big draw. He's a superstar. Um, and so, yeah, my feelings on it in a second. But it wasn't until All In Wembley Stadium this year in London that he had a beef with the wrestler Jungle Boy Jack Perry. Jack Perry, in his match in the pre-show, he suggested he had planned to take time from wrestling away. He wanted to take time away from wrestling, so he wanted to do this spot where he would injure himself. He would use real glass and smash himself through real glass so that he could take some TV time off to go on a vacation that he had previously scheduled. Whenever he actually did the spot with the wrestler Hook, Hook is freaking awesome, by the way. Hook is one of my new favorites, upcoming favorites. His match with Hook, he smashed Hook on some glass on the top of a windshield of a car limo thing, whatever. He smashed Hook on that glass. He knocks on the glass and he looks in the camera and he says, real glass, cry me a river. Now, I was wondering what the hell that was about. Turns out that prior to that match, CM Punk and Jack Perry had a disagreement about using real glass, which Tony Khan, AEW, all greenlit the scenario. They were like, hey, Jack Perry can use real glass if he wants to. CM Punk specifically told Jack Perry beforehand, you can't do that. Not on Collision, do it on Dynamite or whatever. And so it's just like, he said, do it on Dynamite. Don't do it on Collision. You're not allowed to do it here. And basically Jack Perry ended up doing it in spite of CM Punk, which after that match, CM Punk was coming out to his match with Samoa Joe at All In Wembley Stadium. When he did that, he came across Jack Perry at the end of his match. Now, the details are skewed who started this confrontation, but apparently it was a quote, so to be pun intended, there was a collision between Jack Perry and CM Punk. And so some people say that Jack Perry started the fight. Some people say CM Punk started the fight. Ultimately, fists were thrown, and Jack Perry ended up in a guillotine by CM Punk until it had to be broken up. And Tony Khan was there to witness it, from what I've heard. CM Punk, only out of good faith, went out to the ring and fought Samoa Joe in the match, out of good faith for Samoa Joe, basically. And he continued the show. After that, the news had broke online. Both CM Punk and Jack Perry were suspended. Jack Perry probably just went off to his vacation. And so, Jack Perry and CM Punk were both suspended. It wasn't until today, after all this news had broken out and all this stuff was going on, it wasn't until today that Tony Khan himself had said that CM Punk had been released, had been fired, basically. And so, given that I had started this stream off saying that CM Punk was my hero growing up, here's where things are going to get a little bit choppy, right? Here's where things get a little bit choppy because after explaining all the drama that CM Punk has been a part of for the better part of the last year, because he's had beef with people like Chris Jericho and Jon Moxley, both who I really like. I like both. Like Jon Moxley, whenever there wasn't CM Punk, Jon Moxley was like my hero. Like whenever CM Punk left, Jon Moxley was my guy that I turned on the TV to watch. And so CM Punk has just been like, whatever he does, his ego keeps getting in the way of being a professional. And so that kind of bleeds into essentially this part where I got disinterested in CM Punk. CM Punk used to be my hero, like I have said. It wasn't until about June of last year when he got into a beef with Hangman Page, both on screen and off screen. Now, I don't really care about Hangman Page as like, I don't really have an opinion on his personality or anything like that. I don't hate him, but I don't like, he's not like my favorite or anything. I think Hangman Page is like a great athlete, though. He's awesome in the ring. He's awesome on the mic, but I don't really have an opinion on him personally, right? So in the Houston show, one show that I was actually considering going to, in the Houston show, CM Punk comes out to Dynamite wearing a abortion T-shirt in Texas specifically. Now, look, a lot of people can have their own opinions on different issues from LGBTQ and like abortion rights and all this other shit. Like, you know, you go ahead and have your opinions on it. That's fine. Just like I'll have my opinions on it. Here's what I won't tolerate. I won't tolerate some asshole with a bunch of money coming out to AEW, you know, tapings or whatever, and basically going on like this, you know, tangent of, well, I guess I'm going to use my platform to be an activist. I'm going to wear an abortion T-shirt to say fuck you to all the fans who might disagree with me. Now, look, that might have been the start of it. I always knew that CM Punk was kind of a left-leaning guy, and that's okay. You know, that's okay. I imagine where you're supposed to keep up kayfabe, where your whole identity, your entire job, why you get paid, is to maintain a character. And if your character is going out there and trying to be political and trying to push political messages, you're going to turn off your audience because they don't want to see political shit when they're trying to escape from that. Professional wrestling to escape from the gripes, the groans of the internet, the real world. They want to be fascinated. They want to be mysticized by things like The Undertaker, Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Rock. They want to be entertained. They don't want to be preached to. And so it'd be the same if it was someone on the right coming out wearing MAGA flags and shit like that in wrestling. That's cringe too. But basically the point that I'm saying is that if CM Punk had not done that, I think I probably would still be invested in him. And then the brawl out whole situation made me not care even more. I was like, this guy used to be my hero. Now he seems like a big scumbag. And so I just found no interest in anything he was doing. I didn't bother to hate him. I didn't really bother to like him either. I just was like, I don't want to watch. I don't want to be involved in this. And like, it's just kind of gotten like that. Once you peek behind the curtain and once the superstar is dead, like, I don't understand why, what's the point of keeping up kayfabe at that point? And so he started coming out and doing this like LGBTQ skit and all that. And I was like, look, nothing against the LGBTQ people, trans people. You know, that's everybody likes to misconstrue that shit. But all I'm saying is that your job is to entertain, not to preach. And so when they come out and they start doing that, I just can't help but feel like, dude, why go be an activist? Like, go protest something. Go out and protest, whatever you're trying to be an activist for. But don't do it whenever you're doing your job. Like, don't do it while you're trying to wrestle and entertain people. And so that's kind of why I got turned off with CM Punk and a lot of other wrestlers, is because I just don't see the appeal in trying to be an activist. Now, I know I've trained a little bit at ROW and I've met some wrestlers myself. They're all very nice. They have sort of this, they have a family vibe about them. And I think that's cool. I think, they kind of need that for their audience. And they need that to kind of, whenever they get behind the curtain, understand that these are actual people with, feelings. They're not just puppets that people can throw food at, basically. However, I've seen what they do whenever they get on Twitter. I've seen them on Twitter, how they act, and I don't particularly care for it. I think that it's divisive, just like everything's been divisive, and it shouldn't have to be divisive because they have an opinion. So I got turned off by CM Punk, and now that he's fired, I'm just like, I'm not cheering and yelling, oh, he should have been fired. No, I don't think he should have been fired. I just think that he probably shouldn't be coming out with T-shirts and trying to, wave a flag saying, oh, look at me, I'm an activist. I'm over here trying to make a name for myself being an activist. And it's like, dude, you don't need to do that. Just go out there and have a good match. Like, that's your job. And so I just tend to be like disinterested in that kind of nonsense. A lot of people are, but pro wrestling is such a polarizing game that people will still tune in. Pro wrestling's pretty addicting, by the way. Like you could still watch every single week and not get bored. I guess unless you're not paying attention or you're not invested. And so, I'm gonna look at the chat real quick. Let's see, how's it going? CM Punk is so good at the GTS, he made his own career fall asleep twice. I guess you could say that. I don't get why people are offended by him being political. Like him talking about trans rights was amazing at Collision. He had every right every right to, as not everything has to keep up with kayfabe. Fake. Uh, I'm sure it was amazing for some people, but I'm glad that he did television. That way I didn't have to bother with it. But like, not everybody's going to agree with that, myself included. I mean, I know that everybody doesn't have to keep up with kayfabe. Not every wrestler does. But at the same time, it's like, you know, do it like somewhere else. You know, people aren't trying to see that to be like, they don't come to professional wrestling to see that, you know? Let's see. Plus, Punk did it after his match at the end of the show. He didn't like hijack someone else's match or the overall show. He did it respectfully. That's a good point. And that's, that's a good point. But he also came out wearing t-shirts, bright trans flags. And, he came out and he was, trying to make a big deal out of it. He's done that several times. He's done that many, like, well, look at me using my platform to try and push a message, whether you like it or not. And he's even said many times that if you disagree with him, he doesn't want you as a fan. He said that, you can't argue with stupid, basically implying that the people that disagree with him are indeed stupid, which is not a good business strategy whenever you're trying to appeal to people that are watching you, thousands of people every single week. Not a good strategy. I've seen it happen many times over. See, Tony Khan does the same exact thing with selling trans merch, but ain't nobody, whatever, says anything about it. I'll say something about it. Tony Khan is just as bad. He's an incompetent leader at AEW. A lot of people tend to forget that. They say, oh, Tony Khan's greatest thing ever because he signed everybody who was a sloppy second from WWE. Tony Khan has been an incompetent leader. This whole CM Punk debacle, all the way back to Brawl Out, would not have happened if Tony Khan was not bad at his job. I hate to say that the guy's a mark, but he kind of is, because he's not good at managing all the money that he has to buy up all this talent. He's running into the same problems that WWE had several years ago, where they had an abundance of talent and not enough time to show all of them. So they just started releasing them during the pandemic, which was a stupid thing to do, because all they did was flock over to AEW and swell up their roster. So what ended up happening here is that, Tony Khan is weird, though, as he seems to be all-inclusive, which in a way he is, and he gave a belt to Nyla Rose, but then he outright released his Sonny Kiss and never gave her a chance, maybe because she was what? But that's the weird thing. It's like, I don't have a problem with Nyla Rose. I know a lot of people might have a problem with Nyla Rose. Gender fluid, yeah, okay. But I don't have a problem with Nyla Rose, because Nyla Rose, like, if you had not told me that Nyla Rose was trans, then I probably wouldn't have cared, right? Plus, pro is so nuanced, and pro wrestling is so outlandish and nuanced that you could have trans wrestlers in the match, and because we have intergender matches, we have men versus women in intergender matches all the time. Timothy Thatcher versus Tony Storm. We had Vince McMahon versus Stephanie McMahon. Did Undertaker go up against Stephanie McMahon? I don't know, but there's so many like intergender matches that I can't make the argument that, oh, I don't want men competing in women's sports when in terms of professional wrestling, because They do ridiculous shit all the time. You ever see Joey Ryan? You ever see some of these like crazy indie guys that are like fighting invisible people? Like pro wrestling is so outlandish that if you want to have a trans wrestler, that's fine. It doesn't hurt my feelings because they have men fighting women all the fucking time. Like it doesn't really bother me that much. The problem is that, you know, whenever a wrestler comes out and starts preaching about trans rights or LGBTQ rights or whatever, it's like, dude, you can be trans, you can be gay, you can be all that stuff, but like be it in your own personal life, right? Don't make it about what you do on television. And that's kind of the point that I'm trying to make is that Nyla Rose never really hammered, like never put on her sleeve that, oh, I'm a trans person. You know, like she never came out to the ring and was like, you can't be a fan of me unless you're pro-trans. And so, like, that's why I kind of respect Nyla Rose, is because she's, you know, mainly been professional. And a lot of people in the wrestling business aren't as professional. Now, I could be wrong. I could be completely wrong about that whole situation. But I like to think that it's okay if you're trans and you're in wrestling, because wrestling is just kind of, it's got its own little flavor. It's kind of its own little ridiculous. So it could do that. It could get away with that, right? As compared to like MMA, if a biological man that transitioned to a woman to fight against a woman in MMA and just beat the shit out of her, that seems like a problem because it's a different biology in terms of male and female in an actual fight. But I've never had a problem with trans wrestlers unless they came out to the ring saying, well, if you don't like me as a wrestler, then you just must be transphobic. And so I tend to see that as sort of an attack on the fans. And when CM Punk comes out and does it, I see it as just as much of a attack. And now it might not be an outright attack like how Star Wars or anybody in Hollywood does it, but he's trying to prove a point. He's trying to be political, and he thinks he's getting a one-up on people that disagree with him. And Tony Khan lets it happen every single time. And I think it's just unprofessional. And so I made the statement on Instagram, don't hire activists. Don't hire activists. Because 9 out of 10 times, activists are probably going to be problems for your money making. For your money making. So let's look at this. I'd have to disagree, as per still a small community in terms of other sports, which shows a sign of unity, support, and hence why cis wrestlers show love and support towards trans and LGBT. Okay. You say small community whenever we just saw Wembley Stadium, 81,000 people sold out their 81,000 seat arena. And you say small community. WrestleManias get thousands of people every single year. Say worldwide sport. And so I don't understand that point. I mean, every athlete from NFL to NBA to, you know, baseball, tennis, swimming, like all the athletes are doing this shit. Like it's not a surprise. That's true. I mean, compared to like Super Bowl and soccer, like, you know, I understand that, but like I'm saying how many people are going out and wearing shirts of their favorite wrestlers compared to wearing their shirts of their favorite football team or soccer team these days? I guess you could say that that's a small comparison, but 81,000 people at All In, that's not small. And that's actually not as big as a Super Bowl or a soccer, you know, FIFA thing, right? FIFA World Cup. It's just as big. I think that it spans a much larger landscape. And so I think the reason why a lot of people are okay with it and they don't feel divisive about it, well, they either don't have an opinion on it and they'd rather watch the wrestling, or they agree with it. I haven't stopped watching AEW because of this CM Punk thing. I haven't stopped watching AEW because I disagree with trans people or because of Nyla Rose or whatever the hell. I don't disagree. Like, I didn't stop watching because I disagree. I just felt like I didn't care anymore. I just don't really care about CM Punk being fired. I didn't think this was a win. I didn't think it was a loss. I think it was just, guy kind of had it coming. And I don't think he had it coming just because he's an activist. I think he had it coming because he's a toxic personality that tried to use activism to shield himself from criticism. He tried to play the game of community. Long word. I have met that pro wrestling is a niche. Yes, it is. It's very niche and specific, and that's the point that I was trying to make. Is that you can get away with a lot of stuff in a niche sport like that, and so I think we actually agree on that. If that's what you're saying, I don't know if we disagree on that, but maybe the verbiage is wrong. But what was I headed? What was I? I don't think I don't have a problem with trans stuff or LGBTQ people being in professional wrestling. I've never had a problem with it. If you wrestle good and you have put on good matches and you're a good personality, I don't have a problem with you. It's just whenever you try and push this message down people's throats and down on our faces, that it's like you need to know your audience a little better. And so in terms of CM Punk, I don't hate CM Punk. I just don't really care for him anymore. And I just don't care that he was fired. And like I said, I don't think they should have hired activists to try and, because everywhere you see an activist get hired, they're more of a problem than they should be. And you can apply that to just about any job, from Starbucks